Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Alumless. It's so good to have you with us. I am Ryan Catherwood. The gentleman there sharing the screen with me is Chris Marshall, founder, CEO of CMAC. And Alumless is a CMAC production. We talk about alumni and donor engagement most of the time. Sometimes we get distracted. We end up in different areas talking about this, that, or the other thing. But generally speaking, we try to hit on topics relevant to alumni, donor engagement professionals in educational advancement. Today, we are not live. Actually, we are pre-recorded. Reason for that is I am on vacation this week. I'm hanging out at the Jersey Shore. And so we thought we would pre-record this episode, make sure we could stay consistent and in your LinkedIn feed and your podcast feed. It's great to have you. But I think what happens sometimes, Chris, is that we actually have a great conversation in the chat, in the comments section of the LinkedIn event. And
I'm looking to see if I can be on live while this is happening. I will be. So I'll actually will be, while it's happening and the recording is playing, I'll be able to enter the chat and discuss with people. So jump in.
I will do that as well from the beach. It'll be good. I will definitely try to tune in on Friday morning.
So if you're listening right now, throw something in the chat. Say hey, tell us where you're from. Say hi to Christine if you know her, and you're going to see her in just a minute here.
Yeah, special guest today, Christine Fairchild, Director of Alumni Relations at the University of Oxford. We are thrilled to have her. She is our second overseas guest.
Yeah. Ryan, put up the promo slide if you can real quick again.
All right, we'll put that back up.
Look at Christine's picture there.
I know.
That is a badass picture.
An awesome LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. You know what I thought of when I saw that though? That's like a Game of Thrones profile photo right there. That is cool.
I like great. I thought that was one of the better LinkedIn headshots I've ever seen with the dark background. So let's get the show started, Chris. I was thinking about a good way to start our discussion today. Maybe share just a little bit about, of all the schools that you've worked with, which one do you think has the most unique character?
So most of our listeners and new viewers will probably appreciate the fact that we do a script on this. So but 80% of the time we stay on script. And when I saw this question from Ryan, I'm like, he's killing me because I can't answer this question on an open forum like this. So the answer is always whatever client I'm with has the best program and the most unique characteristics and all that. The reality is that all schools have something unique characteristically about them that makes it so much fun. They also all say that they have the most engaged or loyal volunteer alumni base. Every school says that. And I say, yeah, you're right. You do. And of course, I'm kidding about it, but all schools bring something different to the table. A place like Oxford University, founded in 1200 something. Well, Christine will give us the profile here and more, but we don't have any of that here in the U.S. So this is a really unique kind of program we're going to be talking about.
I guess that's where I was going with it. And you're right.
I know where you were.
Every school has a lot of unique character, and we will work with some really fabulous clients, and every school is a little bit different. But there is really no university in the world that's quite like Oxford. I've had the chance to be on that campus once myself, and I really thought it was special. I have to say, and I'll share this with Christine when she comes up, I had stayed in a hotel, went down to breakfast that morning on campus at Oxford, go down to breakfast, and who do I see at breakfast? Stephen Hawking. If you could possibly script out your one and only trip to Oxford University, you wake up, you have breakfast or day on campus, Stephen Hawking was having breakfast. His handlers and other folks were there. And of course, he's passed away a few years ago, but that was really something. I thought that was kind of a special vibe.
I've been there several times. I've not met a Stephen Hawking along the way, but it's always awe-inspiring. If you work there, it's not. But I find that as a visitor, just going like, whoa, when you walk on that campus, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is a whoa campus. So how do these unique characteristics generally function to help us develop engagement programs? We look for characteristics, unique qualities.
We actually ask in our interview problem. We do a program review. We ask, what's the secret sauce? What's the unique characteristic of the place? And we often get, we'll hear from staff and alums who tell us what the thing is. And you hear these passionate replies. And really fun answers. And what the follow-up question is, how does that play out in your alumni program strategy? And again, it's going to depend on the institution and what that tradition or that unique characteristic is. So I'm going to stay agnostic here, Ryan. You're not going to get me to talk about one place, because I'll end up getting in trouble from all the alumni people listening to this later on. So
that's so consultant of you.
I know, it was such a BS consultant answer, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
The answer today is Oxford. How about that?
Well, there we go. That's where I was going with it anyway. All right. Well, let's bring out Christine to our conversation. Great to have her join us. There she is. Hey, Christine.
Hello.
Fantastic to have you join us. Thank you so much for taking the time on this Friday afternoon, your time.
Delighted to be here. It's a lovely, hot, sunny summer day here in Oxford.
That's fantastic. Well, you've recently announced that you're leaving the University of Oxford. Congratulations on a successful 12-plus year run there. As you reflect a bit on your tenure, what do you think made Oxford such a special place to lead a central alumni team within advancement?
Well, you all just said it. You all just described this extraordinary environment. And Ryan, I don't think I can say that I orchestrated having Stephen Hawking there in the dining room as you came down for breakfast, but it is that kind of a place where you're surrounded by the extraordinary history, the beauty of the architecture, the depth of the research, and the student body. The alumni that represents the alumni community are amazing. The work that comes out of this place, we came up with a vaccine, for goodness sake. I mean, really, you can't, we're not sitting on our hands here in Oxford. And to have that combination of both history, tradition, a deep respect for the past, but at the same time, an incredible commitment to making the future better. Wow, what an opportunity.
You're in that every single day, Christine. It's just amazing.
Truly. Honestly, there are days where I think, okay, somebody's going to come along and move that slide that sort of scrim away, because this can't be real. This sort of, these buildings and this backdrop, this can't be real, but it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a Hollywood script, typecast, all that.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, they filmed some of Harry Potter at Oxford, right?
They did. They absolutely did. And there's, all of the Morse shows, Morse and Lewis and Endeavor, and any of those TV shows that you watch, these detective shows, are all filmed at Oxford. So it means that the constant sort of barrage of tourists who want to visit Morse's house or want to see where Harry Potter, stepped on his broom and flew off. I mean, all that stuff is very much sort of part of what we have to deal with here, and we are a living, breathing city. And when you talk about being on campus, the reality is there is no campus. We are a city, and the university is embedded deeply in that city. And what's amazing is the colleges that live on the streets with these big, gigantic wooden doors and these beautiful facades, behind those are acres and acres of gardens and most beautiful backstory that only make it richer. So when you're a tourist, you're only seeing just a little fraction of what it is. It's just remarkable.
Tell the listeners real quick. I know I told you we might go off script, but this is an easy one. Give our listeners a profile of Oxford. Some people may not know. When was it founded? How many colleges? How's it set up? Alumni population? Those kind of things.
I had to actually pull out my little cheat sheet to find out when it was founded, because I can never remember. The reality is there's no clear date of foundation. Okay, right. The most we know is that teaching existed by 1098. 1098. Hello. And the first overseas student, the first foreign student, was in 1190. Emo of Friesland.
Okay, good to hear.
Yeah, there you go. Emo
is he contactable still?
No, sadly, Emo has shed these mortal coils. But so it is an ancient university. There are currently 350,000 ish alumni here. I mean, alumni of the university, and they're in 100 and some odd countries around the world. I mean, it's an extraordinary diaspora and an amazing reach and breadth into every industry in every corner of the world. It is remarkable. And there are 39 colleges. You asked about colleges. Yep. So this is, right. And we'll get to this. I know this is one of your questions, but one of the most complicated factors about Oxford or navigating Oxford is the very decentralized nature of it. And the fact that there are these small discrete ecosystems of colleges that have their own traditions and their own history and their own culture, their own way of acting or behaving, plus their own staff. They have their own alumni relations people, their own development staff. So it becomes a bit of a challenge to navigate this very complicated, decentralized structure and create any kind of a unified experience for people.
Yeah, yeah.
I would imagine so, and I definitely want to continue to build on that notion, that the sort of embracing that decentralized culture, because you can't really fight against it, right? It's so important.
No.
You would want to lean into it, right? And I think that that's important. Christine, I was thinking about, you've had such an awesome tenure at Oxford, but I wanted to ask you if there was something you could go back in time, do again, maybe was there an initiative that got away, kind of? If there's something that you would have loved to sort of try again or do over, what might it be?
Yeah, that would be tough to pick one, Ryan, to be honest with you, because I think this job is so big
Right.
that there are so many things that I wish I could have done that frankly, by virtue of the history of the colleges and the relationship of the college and the central university and the departments, that what I've been able to do is more incremental. I can't say that I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve by any means, because there's so much across this very complicated institution. I think one thing that would have been terrific would have been to be able to embed in and integrate more of the technologies, more of the digital space. We are so woefully behind when it comes to that kind of thing, that as a result, the experience that alumni have with us is very bumpy. And if we could have figured out a way to be more joined up digitally, with the more of the systems there to support what we do, I think overall we would have been in a better place. So that might be one, but that's going to be probably my successor will say the same thing after 10 years as well. Oh God.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I wanted to throw this one at you. I mean, I imagine that there are many disadvantages, I suppose, right, with having a strong, decentralized culture if you are leading a central alumni advancement program. But there has to be some advantages as well, right? What, in your mind, what do you think that those might be? And we could let Christine maybe follow up on that.
I'll give a quick one, and I love to hear Christine's thoughts about it at Oxford specifically. But I came up with two categories: sort of the internal advantages and what is it to alumni on the outside. You have 39, in your case, examples of potential best practices and ideas that are being generated. So you can partner and collaborate, align, lean in together, and say, how can we do this? So there's thought partnerships, was what I was saying there, and potential collaborators. On the alumni side, I think for me, you're going to be, if that's the approach, then I'm going to be hearing as an alumnus from the thing I care most about. My passion and alignment with Oxford is with that college, and when I hear from them, that's going to want to make me engage versus I'm hearing from the big behemoth of the institution. So the other one I think that would be beneficial to alumni is that we talk about, Ryan, a lot about curating content across an institution to deliver to alumni to add value. What better place to curate content at than a place like Oxford? So the value to alum could be off the charts if we're pulling that. All that is assuming, Christine, that you have these amazing collaborative relationships with all your colleagues across the institution. But I'm sure some are in that category, right?
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I think one of the benefits of dealing with a decentralized structure that has so many different little ecosystems, as I said, is that the richness of the experience that alumni can have is extraordinary. They can have an experience with their college that is this kind of experience. They can have that kind of an experience with their department. They can have a totally different experience with the alumni office centrally, because we represent the aggregate. So that means that you as an alum can hopefully curate your own relationships in the sort of the percentages that you want to curate them, or in the strengths that you want to curate them. I think the challenge then is for us to make that easy for you. The other challenge is for us to be able to gather the kind of either behaviors that you're exhibiting or the preferences that you have, and use that data in a way that really gives you an experience that is manageable. Right now, it's basically, we're just throwing everything at you. You know, you're hearing from your college, you're hearing from your department, you're hearing from your rowing club, you're hearing from the museums, you're hearing from the central office, without any coordination of that message. So right now it's very much every tub on its own bottom, as we used to say at Harvard. And I think that is doing a disservice to the individual who is experiencing a much more defined, where they define it, a defined relationship with a lot of their institutions, because they can do that. The institutions are set up technologically or digitally to be able to do that for people. So if I imagine, you know, my dream in the, you know, in the far future is to have some kind of a curated platform or portal where you can experience the Oxford that you want. I want to hear from my this, from my that, from my this. And I want to change that. In 10 years' time, I'm going to be a different sort of person. I'm going to have a different set of needs. I want to keep moving that around to relate so that it's relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I think I remember you mentioning that when we're going to talk about this in our bonus segment, the Sue Cunningham's book that she wrote, where that was something that you reflected upon at something that you would love to see happen at the University of Oxford, that sort of ecosystem for alums that they can customize, and it has the experience that you can build.
Right, so I like you teasing the bonus section. That was a nice move, by the way.
Yeah, teasing the bonus section. If you aren't aware,
don't go away.
Right.
Aren't aware, listeners, you can catch our 30-minute bonus segment
exactly
with
for
all of our
a set of steak knives.
Courtesy
for the drawing,
by the way.
Yeah. Well, if you could go back and give yourself some advice, Christine, in 2011, just starting out at Oxford, what would you go back and tell yourself?
Gosh, it's such a good one. And frankly, I think this might be a universal one for anybody in a new job, is really give yourself the time to listen. And I mean, don't assume that you have to go into this new job with all guns blazing. I got the answers. You hired me. I got it. I got this. Don't worry. Because frankly, especially going into a place like Oxford, which is so consensus driven, this is not the kind of thing where you can go in and overnight, or even, you know, in the first 3 months, make any kind of an impact, because you need to build trust, and you need to build awareness, and you need to build respect and all that stuff. So I think I would have spent more time really listening hard, really getting out and listening hard, as opposed to thinking I needed to hit the ground running and make some early wins. So that would probably be it.
Would Christine of 2011 listened?
You know, I think I was so overwhelmed that I got this job that I think I felt I needed to prove something quickly. Now, I'm not saying that I did anything in the first 3 months, that I was successful in any of that strategy of mine.
You felt compelled to act, right? Yeah.
Right. But I think actually, and I'm not going to sound, I hope I'm not going to sound like I'm bragging, I think I'm a good listener. Sorry, what'd you say, Chris?
I would agree. We've interacted enough to know I think you are a thoughtful, listening individual. And it's got to be hard, though, at a place that has 1,000-year history almost, right? You've been doing this for a millennium.
What was harder, frankly, was listening enough to know and understand where the center of gravity is. That's the hardest thing about this place, is knowing who makes decisions, where is that center of gravity, and how do I get to it?
Yep, that's a really good way to put it. Center of gravity. I know exactly what you meant when you said that, right? Because it's the levers and influencers. Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, and I want to add just a little bit of color, which is that at Oxford, do I have it right, Christine, that the colleges and the schools are also residential? So you live there, you've enrolled in that college, you're studying at that college, your friends, your classmates are all at that college, which is part of the university.
Yeah.
So it's different.
And pretty much every college. No,
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's different from, say, the houses at Harvard, which are very, Eliot House has a very different image to it than Lowell House does. They all have their sort of characters. But here, when you have a college affiliation, that college affiliation sticks with you for the 3 years. It's very important. You usually live in college for the first year, at least, if not 2. The third year, it's only a 3-year program, you often live out because there just aren't enough college accommodations for all the students to live in. But you're right. It is the universe that you know and you see, and that you're so shaped by.
deep affinity. It's like 39 liberal arts colleges around a university is what it kind of, as you described it, it kind of felt like to me. Yeah.
It's true. And interestingly, each college teaches everything. How
Wow.
efficient is that?
Not, but it's Oxford, so they can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
Gosh, I feel like we could have a long conversation about just that.
That,
I know. I know.
Well, so Christine, looking back over your tenure, what are some of the initiatives that you're most proud of?
I think it might be that one about building trust. I think there was such tension between the colleges and the center, and there still is when it comes to fundraising. There still is that sense that these alumni are mine, and the Central Development Office, you can't talk to our alumni unless you ask permission. So I think a lot of what I've been able to do is to kind of build a trust amongst my colleagues in the colleges, a real respect, I think, a sense of carving out more obviously what our role is versus what their role is. So we really talk about, how they own that nostalgia, they own that experience. It's an emotional connection with their alumni, whereas the departments really own the head of alumni, if you will. They own that sort of intellectual curiosity. And what our office does is really serve as the great convener. We bring everything together for you, the individual, the alumni, to have access to that great content, to have access to the great resources, the information, the sort of the latest research, the benefits, the services, the network, the wider network, all that stuff. So we've really been able to, I think, much more crisply carve out our role in supporting alumni relations or alumni engagement. And to say we've actually gotten, I think, the colleges to realize that alumni engagement is not a unilateral affinity. In other words, we all have many chambers in our hearts. We all care deeply about multiple institutions that we support, and that there should be room for us to have multiple relationships at this university.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, they may change over time.
Absolutely, they'll change over time. Definitely. Yep.
So, Christine, if you were to provide your successor some advice, maybe not you just go on the effective listening tour advice. What other advice might you have, maybe particularly around the area of embracing the decentralized culture there?
I think it would be probably to rationalize and describe the value proposition more appropriately. In other words, or not appropriately, it's not that we haven't described it appropriately, but more succinctly. In other words, I don't think we are as good yet, and this is cultural too, because in England, the expectation that it's very different than in the US. You don't have the same raw sensibility around your institution in England as you do in the US. The expectation when you start as a student in year one back in the US is that I'm part of this community, and that community extends beyond my 4 years at college, and that alumni community is sitting there waiting for me, and I'll be able to take advantage of it as I grow and need help. Whereas that simply isn't embedded in this culture here. So I think there's a lot to do to explain to people the power of that network, the potential for it to support itself and each other, the importance of engagement and what engagement even means, that it's not, Europe used to lead with fundraising before they even had any kind of a relationship with their alumni. They just led with, we need your money. Well, needless to say, that didn't work very well. So it's really talking about the value proposition, really explaining and framing that value proposition that is relevant and responsive to the individuals today. We need to be sure that we are presenting ourselves not as an old, fusty, musty, black tie dinners at high table kind of thing that may still be available to some. But the reality is we are an agile, open, expansive, responsive university that is yours to take advantage of. It's your home base.
Christina, apologies to Ryan. I was supposed to ask that question and I dropped the ball, but thank you for covering.
I filled in, Chris. I knew that was
you were great. You're amazing. But let me follow
here.
Let me follow up. So the position, so you're in it until what date?
August 16th.
That's right. I remember it's August now. And the position is posted and the search is active right
August
now.
18th. It is. It's active right now. Richmond Associates is handling the search.
Okay.
And really encourage all interested people to throw their hat in the ring or to learn more about it.
You took that cue perfectly, Christine. You knew I was
Not
giving
a
you a
problem.
commercial opportunity right there. That was great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do think it is an extraordinary opportunity. This is an extraordinary time in the history of the university. We have a new vice chancellor who is so fizzy and fun and wonderful. And she's got a vision. She's putting that vision into practice now. And there's going to be expectations around alumni involvement. There will be, important work done on fundraising in terms of probably down the road, not too far, a capital campaign. There is so much that's happening right here that is making it the job for now. It's great. I cannot say enough about it.
I posted last week about a position open at Stanford, and Ryan
Yeah.
commented on my post and said, and I had said something about it's a great program, and he wrote Oxford and INSEAD are open too. I go, yeah, they're not bad either. They're two good opportunities out
But
there.
it is quite amazing, isn't it, that those three
unbelievable.
jobs are open, and it's been fascinating. I've gotten a couple of emails about the Stanford one because I did think before when I left HBS, I thought, well, where do I go now? Stanford would be pretty fab. Never thinking that Oxford was even in the mix. So
wow, cool.
And for listeners don't know that Christine came from the Harvard Business School where you had been for a number of years, and I would imagine that was a fantastic experience. I suspect perhaps quite a bit different than the
different because it was like being in one of the colleges. It was an inside, departmental focus, and 75,000 alumni. So it was that was quite different from that standpoint. We could control everything.
That's what business school leaders said. Like the person at Said, probably at Oxford, is probably somebody who has their own little kingdom for alumni engagement. Is that a fair statement?
They do somewhat. Yes, they do.
Well, so Christine, you participated in a focus group that was used in the chapter on alumni relations in Sue Cunningham, who's the leader of CASE, in the book, Global Dialogues to Advance Education. Can you reflect on that experience just a little bit and some of the takeaways of that group
It was so great. If you haven't read the book or picked up the book, you should, because honestly, Sue convened the most brilliant group of people. Not saying that I'm brilliant, but I'm just saying that she had the most incredible people around the table for various chapters devoted to different angles. And it was such a privilege to sit around that table. We were talking about sort of what's different about alumni relations today. So I learned a lot from others because it was an international group. But there was a lot to take away. I think we were all really moved by the speed at which alumni relations has changed over the last 10, 15 years, really moving into much more inclusivity, much more data analysis, the idea that strategy is led by data, much more of a digitized experience, much more awareness of how alumni affinity changes over time and that we need to be more responsive to those changes over time. More awareness of the leadership of our institutions owning the power of their alumni. In other words, standing up and saying our alumni are important to us, and this is the way in which they're important to us. They define us by the way they live their lives, by the work they do, by the boards they sit on. Much more of that kind of celebrating alumni, not simply for the gifts that they give to the university, but for the way they live their lives and the brand extension that they are part of by virtue of that. It was a really great session and wonderful to sort of reinforce the importance that alumni play in institutions and the awareness that we're all taking of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff happening. And I think to build on what you were suggesting and what Sue suggested in the book, and we've had Sue on Alumless as well, just the idea of the importance of communication, digital, right, in the intersection of what is alumni engagement and what is marketing and communications and marketing. There's a ton of area of overlap that
absolutely
the fourth category of the four case modes, right, is communications, top of the funnel, getting people involved.
Yeah, and being much more sophisticated about that, as opposed to just kind of throwing the same thing to everybody, being much more nuanced and sophisticated about the voices we use, the images that we use, all that stuff. Yeah.
Amen. I love that you just said that.
Much more sophisticated, indeed. Well, hard to believe, but we have already reached the end of our broadcast. It goes by really quick.
It's such fun to talk to you both, I have to say.
Thanks, Christine.
We really geek out on engagement. There's not that many folks out there that geek out on engagement. So we have a good time. But Chris, we are going to be back in 2 weeks. Who is going to be joining us?
Erica Arroyo from the University of Miami. I was going to say rising star, but she's a star.
No, she's brilliant.
She's amazing. Yeah. In a very University of Miami, not founded in 1098 like Oxford, but
we won't hold that against her.
No, right? Wonderful institution, but in a very integrated program where alumni engagement, annual giving, spend a lot of time together strategizing and prioritizing, and be fun to have that conversation with her about an integrated model and approach.
Yeah. Definitely a very different approach at the University of Miami. Had Erica on a webinar I did recently on their Canes Communities Regional Engagement Program. They won a CASE award for it and made some really sort of significant updates to their approach that she shared. And we'll talk about that with Erica as well. All right. Well, we are going to record our bonus section with Christine, which will be available on the podcast version of Alumless, which of course you can subscribe using your favorite podcast app, or at least the main 4 or 5 of them anyway. And we'll be back in your feed with Erica Arroyo in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.
Thank you again, Christine. Wonderful.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.